straight ahead on Law and Crime Daily.
What we saw was an affront not only to our democracy, but also to our values.
The search is on for individuals accused of storming the U.S. Capitol. Our experts weigh in on the possible charges they could be facing.
What happened is textbook terrorism.
A religious leader accused of sexual assault appears in court. The secret weapon prosecutors have for this upcoming trial.
My client has actually always wanted to plead guilty and expose the church.
Plus, a hearing continues for the so-called Doomsday Couple, the secret recording that led Vallow and Chad Daybell to requesting their prosecutors be removed.
We are going to be filing conspiracy to commit murder charges against both Chad and Lori.
Fighters stormed the U.S. Capitol and are apparently planted at least 2 explosive devices.
There were 68 individuals arrested yesterday evening and into the early morning hours of January 7th. Of the 68 arrests, 60 were adult males and 8 were adult females. 41 of those arrests occurred on U.S. Capitol grounds, and to my knowledge, only one of the arrestees is from the District of Columbia. I just want to underscore that. Only one of the arrestees was from the District of Columbia. However, we still have a significant amount of work ahead of us to identify and hold each and every one of the violent mob accountable for their actions. We have collected numerous images of persons of interest that we are asking the community to help us identify. These images depict individuals engaged in various acts of violence or property destruction, and we have made these images available on our website and social media platforms.
The FBI is also calling for help to identify individuals investigating violence in Washington, D.C. Anyone with tips is asked to go to fbi.gov/US Capitol. Police say 4 people died, 1 inside the Capitol after being shot by police, and 3 of medical emergencies.
The Metropolitan Police Department is handling the investigation of the U.S. Capitol police officer-involved shooting that occurred in the House lobby area. The decedent in that shooting has been identified as 35-year-old Ashley Pomeaton, also known as Ashley Babbitt of Huntington, Maryland. This remains an active MPD investigation. There were 3 additional deaths that occurred, which we believe all to be the results of medical emergencies. The decedents have been identified as 50-year-old Benjamin Phillips of Ringtown, Pennsylvania, 55-year-old Kevin Greason of Athens, Alabama, and 34-year-old Roseanne Boylan of Kennesaw, Georgia.
Joining us now is former federal prosecutor Gene Rossi, along with criminal defense attorney Gigi Gonzalez and Terri Austin. Gene, charges have been set, but only so far for gun possession and being out after curfew. Many are asking about actual charges stemming from storming the Capitol, destroying property, sedition, theft, and even the Monuments and Statues Act. What do you make of the charges and lack thereof?
Well, in terms of making of the charges, in D.C. there are 2 courts, if you will. There's D.C. Superior Court, which is the state crimes, and that's for trespassing, destruction of property. And then there's the big court. There's the U.S. District Court. And what I think is going on here by the charges brought and the lack of charges is this. They're charging all these lower level people in D.C. Superior Court with relatively, I say relatively minor crimes compared to what the big charges could be in federal court. And in federal court, they're going to bring the big guns. You're going to have federal conspiracy to commit sedition, insurrection, interfere with elections, and that'll be the grand jury process. You are going to see a flurry of subpoenas to various individuals in the White House, in the police department, in other areas. The individuals are lower levels, their Facebook to find this. Was there a conspiracy among major people, including the president, Giuliani, to conspire to cause a riot, if you will, at the U.S. Capitol, which violates so many crimes, I don't even want to mention one. So that's what it tells me about the charges brought and the charges not brought. They're going to be moving up the food chain, and you could possibly see in a year or 2 a major RICO indictment in U.S. District Court. That's my take.
Interesting. Now, that's for the people who protested and rioted inside of the Capitol. Now, Gigi, Ashley Babbitt, as we heard, she was shot and killed in the Capitol. Could there be charges against the officer that killed her? Terry, what do you think about when it comes to Ashley Babbitt? Could there be charges against the officer who killed her?
I don't think so, Brian, because if you think about it, the Capitol was being charged. This woman was being hoisted over the window, and the security guards in the Capitol had to defend the Capitol. So they pulled their guns out, and one of them did shoot. And they did not know whether or not there were weapons that were being brought in. Maybe she had a weapon. So I think that she, was killed, and it's horrible that anybody got shot and killed. But I think that the officer who pulled the trigger is going to be able to justifiably defend himself as far as that death was concerned.
Now, Gigi, when I saw some of the social media, the defense attorney in me was screaming because there's so many photos of these individuals. There's going to be on the lookout. One guy had his feet on Nancy Pelosi's desk and was posing. What do you think is going to happen to people like him?
Oh, he's going to get the book thrown at him. And not only that, some of these people actually filmed themselves and posted the own evidence of their crime on their social media platforms. As a criminal defense attorney, you're looking at this and it's like, how dumb do you have to be to commit this type of crime on international television? And here they are. This is a criminal defense attorney's nightmare to defend some of these people.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to that if I was representing these guys. And in other top news, a hearing is underway for the 4 former police officers charged in the George Floyd case. The ex-cops, including Derek Chauvin, are requesting their trial be delayed from March until this summer. Prosecutors are not objecting. The ex-cops are also seeking to introduce new evidence that investigators found drugs in Floyd's vehicle nearly 7 months after his death. Floyd was killed in May after the officers kneeled on his neck for more than 8 minutes. Recording is not allowed of the virtual hearing, but the Law&Crime Network is following and will bring you the latest. Still ahead on Law&Crime Daily, could the Doomsday Cult couple finally be facing charges for the deaths of their 2 children? But first, a hearing for a former head of church accused of sexually assaulting his own followers. Our exclusive report next. A religious leader accused of sexually assaulting his follower is expected to go to trial. Chief Investigative Correspondent Brian Ross has an exclusive report on why one of his own members plans to testify against him.
Thanks, Brian. Coming up this week on Brian Ross Investigates, a year of reckoning for yet another powerful man accused of abusing the young women under his control and authority. He calls himself the Apostle. Nesan Joaquin Garcia leads the Light of the World Church, claiming 5 million members in the U.S. and around the world. He's set to go to trial in California in the next few months, and among those testifying against him will be the woman who was once his handmaiden. She's pled guilty. She can't talk yet publicly, but she wants the world to know what she knows about the Apostle.
It's quite clear that 3 generations of Garcias have been engaging in rampant sexual abuse and pedophilia, and lately child pornography. And yet they maintain this image of holiness and purity. People are now starting to see them for what they are. And my client, Ms. Ocampo, wants to play a role in that. She wants to expose them. And actually, one of the reasons she's asked me to be her spokesperson is she wants to hopefully prevent these abuses from occurring to other women. It took her a long time to realize that what was being done to her was not holy, was not righteous, was not something mandated by God. And she's hoping that other women who are or were in the same situation she was in will see this and hopefully will learn that this abuse isn't right.
That's coming up this week on Brian Ross Investigates on the Law&Crime Trial Network. Brian?
Thanks, Brian. Garcia briefly appeared in Los Angeles County Court as his case prepares for trial.
The matter is here for pre-trial and trial setting as day 0 of 45. Defendant Garcia has filed this day a motion to compel discovery. Some people just was served, is that correct?
Yes. Yes, sure.
And counsel told me informally that they agreed on the date of February 10th 2021, for hearing the motion to compel. Is that correct, Mr. Jackson?
Yes, that is correct.
Mr. Perry?
Yes, Your Honor.
And by the people?
Yes, Your Honor.
Back with me are attorneys Gigi Gonzalez and Terri Austin. Terri, the co-defendant already pled guilty to, I think, 4 sexual assault of minor charges, felonies, all of them, and plans to testify against Garcia. Is this all but done deal for Garcia now?
You know, Brian, it's definitely not going to help his case when you have someone who is testifying against you. They know all of the details. And apparently Ocampo, the woman who is, his co-defendant, she has been described as this handmaiden. So she actually has had sexual abuse herself. And apparently she was working and grooming the girls who were involved in this sexual abuse case. It sounds a little bit, if you ask me, like Maxine, Ghislaine Maxwell. So I don't know, but it does seem as though that it could be very damaging.
Yeah, definitely a lot of similarities with the Ghislaine Maxwell and Epstein case. Now, Gigi, I get it. Defense attorneys, you got to make your defense. But this whole someone put child porn on my laptop sounds a lot like a dog ate my homework. What do you make of this potential defense the defense is putting forward?
Isn't that so convenient for this man who's been accused of serious sexual abuses and child pornography? Oh, I don't have it. No, people planted it onto my personal phone and devices, and they also manufactured the child pornography and put it on. Next, he's going to say that they also forced him to keep that on his devices and to not report the incident to law enforcement. That defense is pretty transparent, and I don't believe that any jury is going to put a lot of weight into it.
Yeah, I thought the Shaggy "it wasn't me" defense was pretty bad, but this one, I don't know how it's going to work out. Terri, when we're looking at this case, do you see the prosecution having a simple path to conviction, or do you see some pitfalls in their case?
It looks fairly straightforward to me, Brian. I think if in fact they do have the co-defendant who is testifying against him, the jury is going to be quickly led to the fact that, this is a done deal. They have the evidence as far as the computers are concerned. And like Gigi said, I don't think the jury is going to believe that someone else was in his technology, frankly.
Yeah, and the fact that the co-defendant was already pled guilty, it's kind of hard to make that argument that, hey, you're only doing this for a reward. That might already be done. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, the newly released secret recording in the Doomsday Couple. Attorneys for a couple accused of concealing the bodies of 2 children want the prosecutor thrown off their case. Lori Vallow and her husband, Chad Daybell, charged in connection with the deaths of Vallow's 2 children. The bodies of 7-year-old J.J. Vallow and 16-year-old Tylee Ryan were found buried in a shallow grave in Daybell's Idaho property. The couple was arrested last year in Hawaii, but neither are facing murder charges. Law and Crime's executive trial producer Kathy Russin breaks down what's behind the latest arguments in the case.
There's a lot to unwrap here. A few months ago in October of 2020, Rob Wood went to Arizona with what he says was an introductory meeting with Lori Vallow Daybell's sister, Summer Shiplett. Rob Wood says he went down there at the request of Summer's attorney, Garrett Smith, who is representing both ladies. Not that they're charged with anything, but they have representation. He recorded the conversation. Then Garrett Smith claims that it bothered him some things that Rob Wood said in that conversation, and so he decided to turn the recording over to Mark Means, Lori Vallow's attorney. And that's where this all came about. When Mark Means heard information on that tape, he filed a motion to disqualify prosecutor Rob Wood, saying that he unduly influenced, he coerced, manipulated material witnesses.
And the prosecutor is heard on the recording telling Vallow's sister he plans to file conspiracy to commit murder charges against the couple.
Our goal is to have such a strong case that when she has competent counsel, I don't know if you know this, her attorney's never handled a felony before. He has never done any meaningful criminal work at all, and he doesn't know what he's doing. He's a nice guy. Yeah. Otherwise, he's lying about me, but he doesn't know what he's doing. And once we file further charges, she will be appointed counsel who will know what they're doing. And our goal is to put together such a case that they're smart enough to say, it's going to be better to talk. Mm-hmm.
So I'm so torn with all of it's such a conflicting feeling to know that this person's been good her whole life and then has made this error in judgment and got sucked into this vortex of this man. And I feel for her. I just have so much compassion towards her because I know that's not what she would have ever done on her own.
Right.
And so she's going to pay the price for this forever. And I hate that for her. So I'm very conflicted. But I was going to ask you on the concealment, or not the concealment, but on the conspiracy to commit murder, what's the weight of that in terms of jail time? Is that a death penalty thing? Or
It is a death penalty case now.
Are you planning to ask for that for them, or do you not?
We sure hope we don't. A lot of that will depend on her.
And when we come back, a closer look into the courtroom arguments in this hearing for Chad and Lori Daybell. Our experts weigh in after the break. Back now to the case of the Doomsday Cult duo and their defense's motion to disqualify the prosecutor. Terri Austin covered the hearing on the matter and has a latest on this.
Brian, the defense hired a forensic psychologist to review a recording of a meeting between the prosecutor and Lori Vallow's sister. Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell are charged with hiding the bodies of Vallow's 2 children. They are not charged with murder, and their defense is fighting the pending charges against them. In a meeting with Vallow's sister that was secretly recorded, the prosecutor is heard saying he plans to file conspiracy to commit murder charges. Now the defense is accusing the prosecutor of intimidating Vallow's sister. Their expert says the prosecutor tried to solicit specific answers from the sister that would agree with the state's theory.
The conclusion I had was that this would be a type of bias that I call inner circle bias. Okay. And inner circle bias is a situation where a witness is provided with information that's not known to the general public. And so it's an effort to include the witness in sort of the inner circle of information. And as a result, it can be co-opting of that person to really join whatever that inner circle is. So that would be the bias that I believe was active in that particular interchange.
And the interchange is where he talks about seeing the kids in Yellowstone, and then his decision of telling Miss Shiflett that he's going to file murder charges against Chad and Lori. Is that correct?
That's correct.
On cross-examination, an attorney for Rob Wood pointed out that the defense's expert was coming to these conclusions without speaking to Shiflett directly.
I haven't, followed this case in the media and so forth and so on. I think I was referring and reacting more to the sense of the way the information was given. But that, to your point, I do not have a way to demonstrate to you that I don't know that it's not public.
Well, I appreciate the answer because I mean, clearly you haven't talked with Summer Shiflett, right?
I have not. You
haven't watched the preliminary hearing?
I have not.
I didn't see you present at the preliminary hearing, is that right?
Correct.
And so that's my concern when you're talking inner circle and biases and things known to the public. You don't know what's out in the public, right?
Correct. If I may, though, inner circle is not necessarily something that means it's not in the public. It is a biased effort to draw somebody into an inner circle.
My panel is back with me. Gigi, this could be more than just trying to get the prosecutor out, because if they get the prosecutor out, could they potentially make an argument that the information that the prosecutor collected should be thrown out too?
Yeah, absolutely, especially if they're successful in getting the prosecutor removed. And that's a really hard feat to overcome. But if they are able to prove that the prosecutor, Roy Wood, acted illegally and outside of the bounds of his position, then I think it would make sense to also exclude any evidence that the prosecutor collected while on that illegal pursuit.
Now, Terri, you were very fascinated, as was I, by the science behind what they were saying that the prosecutor was doing when talking to these two people. As kind of picking up where Gigi left off, if they are successful, the defense is successful in this, how do you see this playing out for the rest of the trial if some of this information doesn't come in?
You know, it's very interesting, Brian. This witness, Dr. James Davidson, talked about the fact that Wood specifically was trying to lead Summer and influence her and coerce her into saying certain things. He used words like confirmatory bias, and he said that she was being solicited to acquiescence, and, you know, he was using the Reed technique. And I think that if in fact he is dismissed from the case and he can't prosecute this any longer, and if in fact somehow Summer's testimony is limited, I think it will affect the case. And frankly, I think at the end of the day, the judge is going to say that there was no wrongdoing with this 18-minute recording that we heard, and that Wood might have said a little more than he should have, but it wasn't prosecutorial misconduct. I agree wholeheartedly with Gigi that he was in fact within the bounds of what he could have asked her during this little 18-minute meet and greet.
And I guess that's my final question for you, Terry, because I agree with you, but I agree with you because the law says that. But do you think the science does?
I don't think the science says that. I mean, I think at the end of the day, it's going to stay in.
All right, thank you, and Gigi and Terry. And thank you for joining us here at Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.